Bullshit.
Are you playing the wrong game of business? It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm Dave Mastovich, CEO and founder of Massolutions, the world's only no bullshit marketing firm. Today we have a special guest. Patti Mara has worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs to reposition them to increase growth and profit. I can vouch for her. I've seen her in action. She makes an impact that everyone would love to have, and you'll get to learn from her today on the show. She's the owner of Maranet and the creator of a business reinvention blueprint, and has a new book out called Up Solutions. Patti, welcome to the show.
Dave, thank you for having me on No BS Marketing.
Hey, it's going to be fun. You and I got the chance to know each other through a great program called Strategic Coach. I want to talk to you about your career path, your journey. I just like to start off with that. Go all the way back and tell us what happened, because you and I share this belief that things happen. Life happens while you're planning it. And so go ahead, your career path, your journey.
Sounds great. Well, I would say my first entrepreneurial venture was I went in front of a bank board and pitched a business plan for a t-shirt business in Toronto. They had a student venture loan, and one summer in university. I think the summer before I'd had a painting job and I wasn't going to go back and do that again. So I pitched it, I got this loan, and I had so much fun. I did designs, and I found a manufacturer, and I had these t-shirts printed. And then I created stands, and then I was on the streets of Toronto trying to hawk my wares. So it turns out I really loved all of it except for standing on the streets of Toronto hawking my wares. So I did okay. I think I pretty much broke even. It wasn't a profitable summer, but I was able to pay my loan back, and it was an interesting experience. And then I'd say the next significant, impactful experience was when I was in university. I worked in a bookstore, just a nondescript chain bookstore in a mall. But I had a really good manager. And so this manager understood front stage, backstage before the term and awareness had been coined. And she just, all the team was trained that anyone who came in the store, welcome, how are you? Can we help you find something? If they were looking for something specific, you took them to the section, put the book in their hand. If we didn't have it, we made suggestions or saw if we could order it in. And, of course, with little bookstore, we weren't actually supposed to order in, and we did it all the time. So a couple of things that was impactful. I enjoyed working. It was fun. It was engaging. The time went by fast. We had very little turnover with the team. And that's significant because most of the team members were part-time students. Like, we're full-time students and part-time working at the bookstore. And on a regular basis, like at least weekly, we had somebody come back in the store and just say, I want to say thank you. We've been at almost every store in this mall, and this is the only one that we really felt welcomed. And I just want to say thank you. So again, fun, but the business impact, the particular year I'm thinking about, this little store, this is in the mid to late 80s. And this little store was budgeted to do 500,000 gross revenue. And we did over $1 million. So, that was interesting. It was impactful. It was the back end with the team engagement and retention. And then the profitability of that store was through the roof, because, a large percentage of that extra $500,000 was profit. So that, just kind of stayed with me.
Well, let me ask you, Patti, let me jump in. So help our audience, just in case they haven't heard the front stage, backstage, because I think it's so critical to companies. And I love that phrase is taught by you and Dan Sullivan and others from Strategic Coach.
Yeah. So thanks for pulling that out, Dave, because absolutely, I think it's one of the critical frameworks for not just a business owner, but the team to understand. So you open the show saying, are you playing the wrong game of business? It's actually one of my main focuses working with a company, is that most companies are playing the wrong game. They think their business is what they sell. They think the product or service they sell is their business. And my argument is that's actually the vehicle for you to create value. Your business is the impact you have. Why people choose you. What value do you create in the marketplace? That's your business. And so it takes a little bit of a rethink. And front stage, backstage is one of the critical mindsets or frameworks to really pay attention to. Front stage is everything that your customer experiences, all points of client contact, website, phone, in your, with your team, whatever that is, every point of client contact is front stage. Backstage, if you think of the theater model, backstage is behind the curtains, scheduling, hiring, training, ordering, inventory, all the components. And there's a lot. There's more that happens in the backstage than the front stage, but that backstage has to work, synergistically well, great systems to create that front stage experience.
Well, I'm going to stay on this path. We'll get back to your career journey. Mark Cuban, when he bought the Dallas Mavericks years later, said that the NBA didn't realize what business they were in. They thought they were in the basketball business, and he said they were in the entertainment business. So that touches on one of the comments you just made.
Yes, that is exactly right. And that's true of absolutely every business.
Now, with the front stage, backstage aspect, a lot of the stuff that I've heard you talk about and I've seen you implement for other entrepreneurs and has helped me as well is you talk about how important it is to find people that love the backstage and people that love the front stage and to prep those people for the front stage so they can be the best them. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. What you're a little bit bringing in, we talked about strategic coach, which is how we know each other. One of the concepts they have is unique ability, that everyone has unique talents and abilities. And the idea is, you're going to have the greatest team engagement, teamwork, productivity, and outcomes if you and your team are able to work more in their unique abilities. And for some people, backstage, they're structured, they're organized, they keep things working. I love the saying. It's well, there's a couple different ones. You want to systematize the routine so you can humanize the exception. Nothing should be left to memory. If it's left to memory, you don't have a structure. If you don't have a structure, it will not happen consistently. And there are people that love making sure, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and you want those people, right? And then there are people that love to engage with your customers and they're aware of, and they want to create value. My piece though, is you really need to be aware and how are you setting your team up for success? Because if they're not aware of front stage, backstage, if they're not aware that their role is really to create an experience and an outcome rather than sell a product or service, then they're not going to be doing the things that create the best results for your company. So it really is, how do you set your team up for success?
So let's move back to the career path. So now you've had this great experience at a young age, which I know that made such an impact on me. So you had this great experience at a young age where you got to see business work, you got to see leadership. Tell me what happens next.
Well, next is I graduated in the late 80s, right when the recession hit. And that particular recession was the first time that management started to be laid off. I remember the newspaper headline that IBM had laid off middle management for the first time in its company history, and that was the market I was coming out with. And my dad had always said, you get a job with a good company and they'll invest in you and you'll grow with them. Well, that wasn't happening. So I just kind of stumbled around. I had a job in a college, but I was trying to figure out what was I good at, what was I going to do, and I actually, for a couple of years, that network marketing was starting to kind of explode at that time, and so I came across one that was selling water filters and children's education, which I was really excited about. Of course, there was always there was skincare. And then there was one that was dog food and cat food, which is, I'm an animal enthusiast. So that kind of set me off a different path. What was interesting is I didn't like the network marketing model. I mean, one of the challenges for network marketing, some people thrive at it. So, you can't, but you don't own the business. You're always at the effect of whatever the company says. And you could say that's similar to franchising. But what the advantage for me was, what I found is I was really good at training, and I was really good at customer service and retail training. And so that actually went, and in whatever I was doing, very quickly, I was the trainer for whatever the, local network was. And that was that kind of started me down the path. And I was starting to do some customer service training with companies. And that's actually where I came across Strategic Coach. And that was 1997. And when I came across Strategic Coach, I was good at getting something off the ground, but I didn't know how to build an infrastructure to go beyond, the first one or two stages. So I kind of built this and then hit a ceiling, and built that and hit a ceiling, and then built this and hit a ceiling. And it's when I came across Strategic Coach that, the concepts, the whole idea of managing your time for productivity and unique ability. What are things I should be doing and I shouldn't be doing? Where am I putting my focus with my game plan and relationship development? And so, that's actually where I learned the entrepreneurial infrastructure, if you will, to go beyond what I'd done in the past. And that took me off on a whole different tangent. I launched the Profit Generator in 2005, had some really big impact or successes with clients. I had one manufacturing company. It was my first real big consulting project. And I think this is 2005 or 2006. And they were being heavily commoditized. It was that first impact of the commoditization pressure. And you weren't just dealing with local customers anymore. And so I helped them identify who their target audience was, which had changed. And then what's the value they create? Like we did a survey with their customers, and particularly the new target audience, and what do they appreciate and value? And it wasn't the boxes, it was the design and the retail impact. So again, your business is not what you sell, it's the impact you have. Anyways, that company, that was a 4-month project, and that company had been stagnant. They'd been maintaining a gross revenue, but every year the profit was like being cut in half. So that first year they had an increase of 35% revenue and doubled the profit. And they have been on a trajectory from that point. Like, it just took a reframing, and they've been on a trajectory of incredible growth since then. So that was kind of my first. And then I, took that, packaged it, and created an online program. And that's kind of what evolved to today.
What I love about it is you're talking about seeing through the customer's eyes. You're talking about target markets. You're talking about reframing and repositioning. That's just so valuable. And I've been amazed at how few entrepreneurs and business leaders really understand those things. And that's because that's part of my unique ability. So I actually didn't realize that that's hard for other people. So it's been great for me. But talk a little bit about how you help them see through their customers' eyes. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think you're right, Dave. I mean, it's we focus on what we do in every business. And listen, interestingly enough, I do this for other companies. It's tough for me to do it for myself. I think there was a mathematician in the 1930s that mathematically proved you cannot see a system when you're within a system. Right. So it actually it's the value of a coach. It's the value of hiring the expert, because they see it from a different perspective. And that's really a gift, because we're so in our businesses, we're so in the delivery, which is why it's so easy to get caught up in what we're doing rather than the impact we're causing. But I would say, my first thing, and actually, I actually found that I went right back to the basics last year, like in 2020, when the pandemic hit and lockdown started. I talked to business owners that were essential services, and I talked to business owners that were completely shut down. They were event staffing, for example, or photography. They were completely shut down, multi-million-dollar companies down to zero overnight. And then in between. And what was interesting is every single one of them needed to go back and look at who now are our target audience. Who do we create value for? Who wants what we have to offer? And then what's important to them now? Like, what do they want? What do they need? What are their challenges? What are their opportunities? Because it doesn't matter who your customers are, it's changed. And so you get right back to identifying your target audience, what's important to them, get in communication, pick up the phone, do surveys, find out not what you think, but what's really going on with them. And I found, we've shifted again, but I found, again, March, April last year, it was just so easy to pick up a phone and people wanted to talk to you. And they were happy to talk about what their challenges were. And so now you could start figuring out, based on what value I create, what I have to offer, how do we position that?
Mm-hmm. Well, you said a number of things that made an impact on me. One of the things that you've done is you've continually grown and you have a growth mindset. I was doing a workshop about a week or two ago, and in the middle of the workshop, I solved 3 different communication problems for 3 different companies. And the chair running the workshops just said, "Oh, I can't believe you did that in 5 minutes." And I said, "No, that's a lifetime of work that got me to that point." And that's the same with you. So talk about how that all morphed into Up Solutions, the book, how you got the wherewithal to put that together, and how that's all from a body of work that's the entire career.
Yes, thank you. Well, so the book Up Solutions, the byline, I love the byline. It's turning your team into heroes and your customers into raving fans. And the reason that's so important is Up Solutions, if I like the word framework, it's the framework for thinking about, there are actually new business rules. And, so businesses that have been successful, 25, 40, 50 years or less, literally, I think the rules of the game, the rules of business have completely changed in the last 5 to 10 years. And so the book is literally what I've seen, my approach to the challenges and helping businesses adapt. And I would say I literally had the book, I had the outline of the book, and it didn't change a lot over the 10 years. But it took until I found the right partner to bring it to life. And I interviewed quite a few companies in that interim that talking about, Dan Sullivan's book and Ben Hardy's book, Who Not How. I had to find the right who to bring it to life. And of course, I find it fascinating that it came to life. It was published end of January 2020. And then, of course, pandemic and lockdown hit. And my first step is, did it change? Do I need to change my language? Is it still relevant? Do I need to do a second edition 2 months after publishing the book? Which is what had me get on the phone and start talking to people. And I found it absolutely not. Funny enough, the first chapter in the book is the opportunity and change. And so I ended up finding that really everything was still relevant. And then moving forward. So it's a sum of, I've spent about 12 years working with independent pharmacy owners. They were a target audience that I really, because in the States in particular, around the world, but in the States in particular, independent pharmacy owners literally have an unfair market. They have to submit their patient data to their competitors. Then their competitors send out information to their customers saying, if you buy directly from us, it's cheaper than your local pharmacy, when it's actually not. But there's there's no transparency on cost of the meds and what they're charged. And so there's some games that get played. And so again, it was such an important target audience for me, because if a pharmacy thinks their business is selling medications or filling medications, they're going out of business. If a pharmacy thinks they're the health hub in their community, whatever their particular focus is, their passion, their audience, the value they create, if they understand they're the health hub in their community, and unfortunately filling prescriptions is almost, it's not quite there, but it's almost a loss leader. They have to shift their business model so they get paid on the value they create.
Hey, no BSers, that's called reframing and repositioning. So it's a great book, and the way to get that is pattimara.com/no BS marketing. They can get all your stuff right, and it's PATTIMARA.com, no BS marketing /no BS marketing. So Patti, the book is excellent. I want to touch on those new business rules a little bit, because you've already kind of hit this one. Number one, focus on solutions, not sales. Hey, I love that. Mass Solutions has the word solutions in its name. Talk about number one, opportunity from all this change. Focus on solutions, not sales.
Yeah, it's very good. Well, and that's kind of the genesis of the term Up Solutions. It's if you're selling, if you're focused on selling, you're probably transactional and you're probably focused on your product or service. If you're focused on solutions, you're focused on the outcomes. And that's, again, using your product or service as a vehicle to create that outcome. So I think, there are absolute new business rules, the impact of a global economy, the marketplace, the internet's kind of the driving force that has literally changed us, that we have a much smaller world. I had somebody book an intro call with me from Nairobi yesterday. I've worked with a client, an entrepreneur in Ireland. We're a small world now, and if you're just focused on what you're selling, you're being commoditized. Mm-hmm. And I love the book, Blue Ocean Strategy. And I think the first third of the book was brilliant, and the next 2/3 of the book was trying to create innovation in a corporate structure. But that first third, the positioning, is that most businesses are in a red ocean, and it's red from bloodletting because they're being so heavily commoditized and their margins are being squeezed. And that if you think you're competing with, national or international chains where their advantage is mass purchasing and therefore small margins, you're being commoditized and you're focused on the sales rather than the solutions. The idea behind Blue Ocean is that, how can you create your own ocean? It's an open market. And as you said, Dave, it's that creating that solution that's unique, harnessing the power of what you sell, but your business is focused on the outcomes and solutions you create.
It's Patti Mara here on the No BS Marketing Show. The new business rules, all about taking this and making it an opportunity. She's touched on them all. Focus on solutions, not sales. Think relationships, not transactions, and then communicate your value. I love all this stuff. We have very similar mindsets. We both really are passionate about our trade and helping our clients. And so it's really fun to have you on the show. This show does talk a lot about leadership and communication. So I want to ask you about both of those. Tell me a little bit about what's your leadership style and how it's helped you and how you've honed it over the years.
Thank you. Well, so it's an interesting thing. When I started, it was really when I came across Strategic Coach, because I'm actually one of the associate coaches with Strategic Coach, which was a huge opportunity for me. And when I actually started to look at stepping into that role and reflect back, everything I did was a coach. If I was selling, I was coaching. I would coach people, and when they saw an advantage, they would buy. It's like not the traditional. So it's almost like it's an ingrained automatic is coaching. So I would say I lead with a coaching style. Collaborative is important for me. Unique ability is also just part of my makeup. I'm interested in inviting for people to contribute their unique ability to the equation to expand what's possible beyond what I know. So I would say coaching, collaborating. What I've had to develop is making sure that I'm also communicating the vision and the why. It's very easy for me to get in there and work it out. And the evolution that I've gone through, it's in my head, but I have to really identify what is the why and then communicate it. It's the awareness of creating that context for everyone to step in and bring their best efforts.
So talk about that on the communication side. So you have this natural ability to coach, and you had to train yourself to talk about that why. Talk about your communication style and how that's evolved once you realized that.
Yes, well, I think delegation is definitely a learned skill. I read a good book a number of years ago. I think it was written in the 90s. If you want it done right, you don't have to do it yourself, or something like that. Donna Jeanette, I think. And that was really good. I'm good at communicating the what. I have to remember to communicate the why and a deadline. The one thing I can guarantee that I'll leave out is setting the expectation of a deadline. So we talk about Strategic Coach. I've got a couple of favorite tools, and one that's been really important for me is the impact filter. I love Dan Sullivan talks about it. When you do an impact filter, first thing is you're selling yourself, is this something you want to invest in having your team work on? But the next thing is creating the structure and the why. So team understand the context. It's too easy for me just to get into the, and talk about the things that I need or the actions that need to happen. But if I don't create a context, and here's a good example. So last year, I came across a whole challenge structure, creating an online challenge. And I was using that to launch my blueprint. So I think it was the Business Reinvention Challenge. And I have a great team member who does a lot of my, marketing and online work. And so I had this all in place, and I was following, the guy that's the guru of challenges. And, he had talked about 5 days before he starts putting all the marketing out. Not my area of expertise. I've been playing, this is the impact of the pandemic, is I've been playing with online marketing and Facebook marketing, not my area of speed. And I know it's important, but I just don't care. So I need help. And anyways, we're into it. And it's not until, because I'm focusing on getting this done and making this happen. And I'm focusing on content. What am I delivering and who have I set up as guests? And I'm in the weeds without creating the outside context and inviting input. And the missing piece was I didn't know you need to give Facebook a good 10 days to really understand what you're looking at, the algorithm of who's paying attention to your messaging. And we started our launch and our ads 5 days before the challenge started. And, it was afterwards when we were doing a debrief. And thankfully, I have some, great centers of influence. So they were out promoting it to their network. Had it been based only on Facebook advertising, I might have had 2 people. And when we were doing a debrief, my team member said, well, I was going to say this to you, but you were off on your, you were so clear about what needed to happen that really we should have started it a week before. It's like, this is where I missed creating context that invited contribution.
Mm-hmm. That's big. Well, when you've gone through all this different evolution of leadership and also communication styles, outside of family members, who's a mentor or two, and talk about the impact they had?
Sure. Well, the big one that had a shifting trajectory in my life was definitely Dan Sullivan and Babs Smith. Because Strategic Coach is a husband and wife team. Babs has built the business and runs the company, and Dan is kind of the guru behind the thinking and the concepts. And both of them have had a huge impact. Just even focusing on achievements and growth. And I think I've naturally looked at everything as an opportunity to learn and grow, but I struggled with spending a long time being frustrated or upset that something didn't go as planned. And, kind of shifting that to embracing, okay, this is the entrepreneurial school of success. And what am I learning from this experience? They both, I remember within a year of being in Strategic Coach and thinking, wow, it's like my brain just went on what's possible, like beyond what I thought was possible. And another person was actually the father of a good friend of mine. And he was just a really interesting, successful entrepreneur. He built his business. He started as a sales guy, and he built this business. And then he successfully handed off to the next generation. And that's not usual. I mean, he literally parked his ego. And first of all, both kids had to work outside the business. And then when they came in, they started the ground floor and they grew up. But when it was time, he became the CEO of the board, and he stepped back and let one of his son take over the president role. And the son, he was there as an advisor, but he let the son build the business. And it was just interesting. And I just love the conversations we would have, over a glass of wine. And one of the things I'm just trying to think of, one of the pieces that really stayed with me was everyone focuses on sales. And he said, and he's a sales guy. He said, but really to have a successful business, it's cash flow, expenses, and then sales. And, that was that whole flip, that idea. Anyways, it was just, I feel very fortunate that I've had some great people just shift how I'm thinking about something. And those were three that really stand out.
I think it's so important of what you're saying there, because I think there's all this science around growth mindset and fixed mindset. And I tell my sons, I think we all have some things where we have a fixed mindset and other things where we have a growth mindset. It's not a mutually exclusive thing. And I think throughout your life, you have to try to battle that. And I think that when you get mentors or when you do something like strategic coach and you get to hear from other people or Vistage or other things like that, it just helps you to have more of a growth mindset and to fight those things that are a part of you from your childhood and from your other traumas, where you get this fixed mindset. So I love to hear the things you're saying about Dan and Babs and this other mentor. And so that's why I always ask her, because I think it just makes such an impact. And it's why I want to mentor as much as I can.
No, I think we can only think from our own perspective. We need exposure to different ideas and different people to have the opportunity to shift and change gears.
This has been amazing. So I want to make sure you have a chance to say anything else that you'd like to talk about. The book is Up Solutions. And if you go to pattymara.com/nobsmarketing, you can find out about the book, the blog, the podcast, all kinds of other stuff. But was there anything you thought I'd asked you that I didn't? Because I've been known to forget things we talked about prior to the show as well.
Well, Dave, I think the only thing I'd like to add, excuse me, is I think we're in a unique period of time right now in history. We've all been focused on the impact of the pandemic and being locked down and having to adjust. And first of all, I think every business now needs to think from a hybrid perspective. If you're brick and mortar, you can no longer just be brick and mortar. How are you bringing people in? How are you connecting with them, whether it's social media or, website, whatever that is, you need to think multifacets. But the impact has really, crisis interrupts all patterns. And the challenge of last year and the opportunity of last year was, with everything being interrupted, we got the opportunity to park or change business practices that were how we've done it for a long period of time, but really we're no longer working. And I think the opportunity in 2020, I think we'll look back on 2020, this is the opportunity to future forward your business. This is really the time to think through the next 10 years and embrace and engage technology, because the evolution, I read an article by the president of Shopify, and Shopify is software that really enables brick and mortar businesses to get online, to have an online store. And that the impact of the pandemic was to forward their business plan by 10 years. And if you're thinking that way, I think that's the opportunity every business has, regardless of the industry. I think that's the only thing I would add. I think we're in a really, as much as there's a challenge, there's a flip side to the challenge. And I think we're in for entrepreneurs, the biggest period of opportunity that we're likely going to have for a very long time.
Well, Patti Mara, you've been a great guest and a great person to work with over the past 3 years that I've had the chance and the pleasure and the opportunity to see you in action. I want to say to our loyal No BSers, thanks for listening to another episode of the No Bullshit Marketing Show, recorded here in our studios in bold, beautiful downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea? And build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.